hello. The sound is sharp, a heavy gold coin hitting a marble countertop. This is not a back alley transaction. This is the Imperial Palace on the Palatine Hill, Rome, circa 39 AD. Emperor Caligula has transformed a wing of his home into a public brothel, staffed by the wives and daughters of senators. The 5 sexual atrocities that defined Emperor Caligula were not hidden in shadow. They were performed as public theater. A senator, his face pale, is forced to pay the imperial tax before entering a room where his own peer's daughter waits. Caligula watches, a small, intricate key clutched in his hand, a key to these forbidden rooms. This key is his symbol of absolute access. But why did these powerful men, who commanded armies, submit to this degradation? And what buried secret from his own childhood did Caligula force all of Rome to reenact? The lock was meant to keep others out. It also trapped the emperor inside. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The palace brothel was theater, a ritual of humiliation for the Senate, but true power, Caligula believed, was absolute possession. His family was intended for himself. The historian Suetonius, writing decades later, claimed Caligula lived in habitual incest with all his sisters. This was described not as a secret vice, buried in the stone corridors of the Palatine, but as a deliberate performance. This is the first atrocity. The violation of family as a tool of state power. He did not just control their bodies, he rebranded their souls. This was an institutional marking. In 37 AD, he forced the Senate to add his sisters, Agrippina, Drusilla, and Livilla, to the official oaths of loyalty. Senators, placing their hands on the altar, had to swear, "I will not hold myself or my children dearer than I hold Gaius and his sisters." This was a legal and spiritual violation. They were no longer women. They were sacred objects, living goddesses bound to his divine will, their images struck on coins. They were paraded at the games, seated beside him, thousands of eyes watching their every gesture. Their compliance became a matter of state security. Ancient records suggest his obsession centered on Drusilla. He reportedly treated her as his legal wife, a public affront to Roman law. He offered Drusilla a unique mercy. He named her his heir, placing her name above his consular colleagues. This was the hidden price. But what is the price for being a god's property? The price was totality. Agrippina and Livilla survived through a different strategy. Their resistance was quiet, suffocating. They endured. They became marble statues, performing the roles he assigned them. Their faces were blank masks at the banquets where Caligula, according to rumor, offered them to his favorites. Their resistance was silence, a refusal to break. When Drusilla died suddenly in 38 AD, Caligula's control fractured. His grief was monstrous, a parody of love. He forced her deification, but the living symbols of his power, his other sisters, became threats. His mercy inverted. The affection he had shown, however perverse, now turned to cold iron. This is the second atrocity. The exile built on sexual slander. In 39 AD, he accused Agrippina and Livilla of adultery and treason, linking them to the conspiracy of Marcus Aemilius Lepidus. The charge was sexual, a dark mirror of the very crimes he was rumored to force upon them. He fabricated the evidence himself. Their fall was swift. Stripped of imperial honors, their names were scraped from public inscriptions. They were taken to the docks not as royalty, but as prisoners. They were forced onto a ship bound for the desolate Pontian Islands. Their gilded cage on the Palatine, smelling of incense and fear, was replaced by bare rock, burning salt spray, and the cold of total isolation. He had erased them, but they were not the only ones he broke. The trial was not held in a court. It was held every day, in the gilded halls of the Palatine, in the cold marble of the baths. Caligula had broken his family. Now he would break the state. The condition was spoken aloud: total submission or total erasure. This began with the third atrocity, the imperial brothel. Caligula was hemorrhaging money. The solution, recorded by Dio Cassius and Suetonius, was to levy a tax on depravity. He established a brothel within the palace itself, staffed, as the histories allege, by high-born women and the daughters of the elite. He sent imperial messengers across the city, summoning senators and equestrians. They were not just invited, they were commanded. Here was the test. To refuse the summons was to signal disloyalty, a fatal act. To attend was to become complicit. The pressure was absolute. Men were forced to walk past armed guards, down corridors smelling of wax and heavy, stale perfume, to pay the emperor's fee. The price was not just coin, the price was their dignity, paid in full, in public. The why became clear. This was not about money, it was about humiliation. He was proving that the iron-willed elite of Rome, the men who governed legions and provinces, were slaves to his whim. He reduced their honor to a financial transaction. What armor can one wear against this? Silence. The senators adopted the rigid mask of Roman gravitas, that serious, disciplined public face. They performed their duty. They paid the tax, they entered the rooms, and they left. They used the discipline that built an empire to endure its degradation. Their silence was meant to be armor. Instead, it became a vacuum, which Caligula's power eagerly filled. Why would a man pay to be dishonored? The pressure escalated. The quiet deprivation of the brothel gave way to the silence of the banquet. This was the fourth atrocity, the public claiming of wives. Imagine the scene. The great hall is lit by 1,000 oil lamps. Senators recline on couches, the air thick with smoke and wine. Caligula is present, a brooding, unpredictable void at the center of the feast. He stops talking. He rises. He walks the length of the hall, inspecting the wives of his guests. He stops at one couch. He lifts a woman's chin. He examines her, as Suetonius wrote, like a buyer checking merchandise. He does not ask permission. He simply takes her from the room. Her husband does not move. He does not speak. He does not look. This is the trial in its purest form. The condition is absolute. Suffer this or suffer death. The senator's refusal is internal, a cold, silent vow to simply exist until the moment passes. He grips the silver cup, his knuckles white, and stares at the wall. Minutes, or perhaps an hour later, Caligula returns. He rejoins the banquet. Then, the final turn of the screw. He speaks loudly for the hall to hear. He critiques the woman, or perhaps he praises her. It does not matter. The price is this. The husband must nod. He must show gratitude. He must applaud the emperor's assessment of his own wife. This was the answer to the question from Act 1. The Roman elite tolerated this not from weakness, but from a paralysis of terror. Caligula had made himself the living embodiment of the state. To defy his personal perversion was to commit public treason. He had broken the sacred bond of family, and now the sacred bond of marriage. What was left to violate? The final atrocity was not aimed at the elite. It was aimed at Rome itself. This was the fifth atrocity, the violation of the sacred. Having exhausted human degradation, Caligula turned his attention to the gods. His obsession was the temple of Castor and Pollux in the Roman Forum. This was a place of immense sanctity, a symbol of the Republic's protectors. Caligula, records suggest, was not content to worship them. He intended to replace them. He ordered an entrance smashed through the back wall of the temple, connecting it directly to his own palace on the Palatine Hill. He annexed the holy site, turning it into his personal vestibule. He would sit between the statues of the twin gods, demanding that visitors to the palace now pass through the temple, forced to worship him as a living deity. This was the ultimate expression of his power, to physically merge his depraved human body with the divine. This is where the hidden truth is found. The evidence is not just in the histories of Suetonius or Dio, it is in the ground. Modern excavations in the Roman Forum have confirmed this architectural violation. Archaeologists have located the converted passages and rooms beneath the Palatine, structures that physically link the palace to the temple precinct. The stone itself confirms the narrative. Caligula didn't just say he was a god, he altered the landscape of Rome to make it true. But his most audacious plan was found in a hidden place, the Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus on the Capitoline Hill. This was the heart of Roman religion. What secret was held in its foundations? Records state Caligula began building a bridge, a direct line from his palace to that most sacred temple. He planned to install his own statue inside, to usurp Jupiter himself. A hidden rite of memory was performed here, not by Caligula, but by his successor. When Caligula was finally assassinated in 41 AD, his memory was condemned. His statues were pulled down. His name was chiseled from inscriptions. But the most telling act was quiet. The new emperor Claudius immediately sealed the passage to the temple of Castor and Pollux. He walled up the stone wound Caligula had cut into Rome's soul. He did not just kill the man, he surgically removed his blasphemy from the city's architecture. The key to the forbidden rooms, that symbol of access, was now just a useless piece of metal, but some violations cannot be walled up so easily. He was cut down in a narrow palace corridor in 41 AD, murdered by the very guards sworn to protect him. The erasure began within hours. The Senate, the same men who had endured the banquets and paid for their own humiliation, moved for damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory. This was the official response. The ink was withheld. Scribes were forbidden to include his name in new histories. Stonecutters were dispatched to public arches and temples, their chisels methodically chipping away the letters Gaius, Caligula from the public record. His statues were pulled down, the bronze melted for new coins, the marble shattered or ground into lime. His atrocities were erased not just from stone, but from official history. The witnesses who survived, Suetonius and Dio Cassius, wrote decades later. They were distant whispers, not first-hand proofs. Their histories are not pristine records. They are a compilation of rumors, hostile propaganda, and the traumatic echoes left behind. Did he truly open a brothel in the palace? Did he live in open incest? Or were these the feverish nightmares of an elite class he systematically terrorized? Stories amplified to justify the necessity of his murder. The physical key to the forbidden rooms was never found. It likely never existed. The key was the fear he held, the absolute unpredictable power to violate any law, any person, any god, without consequence. The truth is lost, deliberately erased by the cold iron of the chisel and the silence of those who survived. All that remains is the echo. We are left on the Palatine Hill in the sudden cold silence of the emptied palace. We hear it again, that sharp sound. A heavy gold coin hitting a marble countertop. It is no longer the sound of a tax being paid. It is the sound of a moral void. It is the price Rome paid, in blood and honor, for allowing a man to mistake himself for a god. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. Stone can be replaced, but the stain remains. Bye-bye.